There is a lot of controversy around what is the best diet for human health. Why do you think carnivore is the best diet for human health?
Well, I think just basically it aligns with our biology. It's our biologically evolved or designed diet, however you want to look at it. But either way, we're biologically adapted to eat meat, fatty meat. And not only are we adapted to eat it and gain nutrients from it, we are specifically and explicitly not biologically adept at getting those same nutrients from plants. In fact, many of these required nutrients don't exist in plants. And then you look at other nutrients that are in plants, we don't have the engineering and enzymes to break down these chemical bonds to release those nutrients, such as like niacin in corn. There's a ton of niacin in corn, but we can't access it unless we put it through chemical processes called nixtamalization that will break down these bonds, and then we can absorb that, or putting them, or fermenting them, or cooking them and preparing them in these different ways. You don't need to do that. You can eat meat raw. We choose to cook things out of preference. Humans have been cooking meat for 1.6 million years at least, but we don't have to. You don't have to do that in order to get the nutrients that we require from meat. So you get everything you need from meat in the proportion that you need it. You get no deleterious or harmful substances in the bargain. Plants, you don't get complete nutrition. You can't access even the nutrients that are available in plants because we don't have the enzymes to break them down, because we're not designed to eat them. And they do contain harmful chemicals. That's how plants defend themselves. They make a million different, at least a million that we know of, different defensive chemicals to stop animals and insects from eating them. So you don't get enough nutrients. You can't even access the nutrients that are there, and they come with deleterious and harmful chemicals as a result. So take home there is just eat meat and you'll be fine.
I want to ask, because I think people, when they're researching the carnivore diet and if they're just starting, they're going to hear that you need to eat vegetables and you need to eat fruit because it's quite healthy. So can you explain for people that are just starting the carnivore diet, just learning about it, what is it in plants, first of all, that is bad for your health in the long term, while we don't need vegetables and fruit to live?
Yeah. Well, we don't need fruits and vegetables to live because, quite simply, we get everything we need from meat. How do we know this? Because we can see people who do this generationally. We have entire civilizations of human beings alive right now who traditionally eat a purely carnivorous diet. People make arguments. You look back at the literature from the early 1800s or much before that as well. You see different pioneers and explorers from Western countries charting and the different new lands in America, Australia, etc., and their interactions with the natives of that land. And they were very clear. These people were carnivores. They ate meat, fatty meat, as much as possible. They knew which plants they could eat in a pinch, but it was starvation food. It was, if you couldn't get meat, this is what you would eat as a result, or they use them medicinally. It was not the primary food source for the majority of these populations. But people quibble and say, well, Native Americans ate X, Y, and Z, and this, and the. Okay, so in this isolated area, they would eat some crops, and you're trying to extrapolate that to 2 continents full of people. That doesn't actually really scan. And so, but all that aside, what about the Inuit and the Eskimo, formerly called the Eskimo people, that would live in northern Canada, Greenland, northern Alaska, these sorts of places? There were no plants to eat. These people could be living in the Arctic Circle, where there is no plant life at all. There's nothing growing. There's only animals, largely sea life, but then also ones that sort of transition that barrier, like seals who go into the water and prey on the fish and other sorts of marine life. They come up on land, and then bears get them, those sorts of things. And then the Inuit that prey on them, and all of the above. So we know that humans not only can survive but thrive on a meat-only diet. We know that humans have been alive and thriving in the Arctic Circle in the ice ages. And what are you supposed to eat in the ice ages if not meat? And so we know we get everything we need in the proportion that we need it, because you can't possibly survive unless you do get complete nutrition, and especially in those environments. Those are extremely harsh environments. And if you don't thrive, you die. That's all there is to it. No one's barely squeaking through an ice age in the Arctic Circle. So we not only thrived, we became the most dominant animal dominant species that's ever walked this earth. And it was during the ice ages that we came to that sort of world dominance and prominence. As to vegetables, well, you don't need to eat them. B, you don't want to eat them because they defend themselves chemically. A polar bear can mess you up. And so, people had to be able to fight and risk dying in order to fight these things off, defend themselves, or even kill them and bring that back to their tribe. But once they're dead, or an animal is dead, the meat itself is extremely healthy, barring smaller animals that can use poison sacs and stingers and things like that. But even in them, the meat itself is typically very healthy. And that's because they have other defenses. They have other kinetic defenses. They can move, they can fight back, they can fight you, they can try to hunt you and eat you. But plants can't. They're stationary. They can't move, they can't run away, they can't defend themselves in that kinetic fashion. So they have to use chemical warfare to stop animals and insects from eating them. And so, again, they make about 1 million different defensive chemicals to kill, injure, and disrupt the health of the organisms trying to eat them. And that goes all the way down to fungus and bacteria and things like that try to take advantage of the plant as well. So they have extremely robust defenses. We know this intuitively because most plants on Earth will just kill you if you try to eat them. People saying like, well, if plants are trying to kill you, they're doing a really bad job. It's like, okay, tell that to hemlock, right? So, go ahead and make a garden salad out of random leaves you find in the forest, and, tell me how good you feel the next day if you're still alive, right? That'd be a terrible idea. Most people know that if you get lost in the woods, you can't eat any random plant because most of them will make you very sick. So it's a really bad idea to do that. And then we just pretend that these plants that we get in the grocery store are not only safe but beneficial. Well, there's no evidence that we've ever eaten these things in large quantities while our species was evolving. People will trot out that some Neanderthals were found to have some grains in the calculi of their teeth. Well, that can mean anything. They could just have some stuff stuck in their teeth. It doesn't mean that they were eating a whole bunch of grains. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Second of all, that's only in the very recent fossils of Neanderthals and very, very early Neanderthals and Homo sapiens and Homo erectus and Homo habilis. You did not see that. And either way, just because what someone chooses to eat out of necessity doesn't mean that that's what is optimal for them, right? You see bears going through garbage cans. Is garbage the optimal diet for bears? Like, no, it's opportunistically eating that because it's just trying to get, enough for the winter. So, we're talking about optimal here and optimizing our health. And to do that, you need to look at what humans have been prospering on for the longest, and that's meat. It's not something that we have to guard against because it's not inherently dangerous. It has all these nutrients that we need. And plants are harmful. They do cause harm to varying degrees. Lettuce is, somewhat innocuous, but you know what? Spinach isn't all that innocuous, and you eat too much of it, you can actually get oxalate poisoning. Liam Hemsworth, the actor, actually put himself in the hospital with acute oxalate poisoning because he was talked into going vegan by some nutritionist that probably overcharged him. And he ends up, drinking spinach smoothies every morning for 3 weeks, and it lands himself in the hospital with acute oxalate poisoning and massive kidney stones that had to be surgically removed. So, these are actually well-known phenomena. You read nutrition books from 100 years ago, like Adele Davis, who's a very famous nutritionist and extremely bright. I mean, she figured out a lot of things long before other people did. Grew up with her books. We had all her books in my house when I was growing up. And, looking back at some of these things, she was spot on with it. First of all, she said, need to eat meat. Liver, like raw liver, was one of the best foods for pregnant women or breastfeeding women and kids that are developing. And she talked about oxalates in spinach. She said that they only said, that you don't just eat raw spinach. That wasn't what was done. What you did is you poached them in milk, and the calcium from the milk would actually leach out the oxalates and bind them, and then you could eat the spinach more safely because it lowered that toxic load. And that's the thing. We had these traditional ways of eating plants in order to lower the toxic load and increase the bioavailability of the nutrients so that we could at least gain some benefit from eating them. We have studies from the 1950s looking at spinach because they actually have a lot of calcium in spinach. And I've spoken to people now that said, oh yeah, my doctor told me to eat a lot of spinach because I needed calcium. It's like, okay. Well, the studies actually showed that if you give people spinach, it actually lowers their calcium because the calcium in the spinach is not available. We don't have the enzymes to break them down. They're not bioavailable. And so, because we're not designed to eat spinach, very plainly, that's all the proof that you need, really. And they contain oxalates, which get into your bloodstream and actually bind and strip out and chelate your calcium. And then you end up lowering your calcium levels. So that's actually what the data shows. That's what the scientific experimental studies have shown. And yet you say, oh, there's calcium in spinach. Eat a bunch of calcium. Sorry, that's not how plants work. So you get everything you need in the proportion that you need it from meat. There are things that you need in meat that you cannot get from plants, but there's nothing in plants that you cannot get from meat. And well, nothing that you need anyway. There's nothing deleterious in meat. There are literally over 1 million things that are deleterious in plants. So that's why you want to eat meat and you don't want to eat plants. And they're finding that they're massively improving the health of their microbiome. In fact, there was, we're seeing this just all over the place, and many people are publishing this. Dr. Ken Berry has published this. Benazati's published this. Dr. Sean O'Mara has published this, and in fact, Dr. Sean O'Mara, his microbiome was so good that the president or whomever of the company that he used to test his microbiome personally called him and said, "You have the best microbiome our company has ever tested. What the hell are you doing?" He's like, "All right, I'll tell you." And Benazati, who's been doing a clean, omnivorous, ketogenic diet, so